Welcome to a full book review of Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travel. Let us get to start with now. I will try to go ahead and put this with as many drawings that I make myself on the fly as possible. Let's get started with right now. One thing I will say about Jonathan Swift about this is that it's a bunch of criticisms about humanity, more specifically about the flaws that humanity has, about the climaxes and the rejections that humanity has, and everything else that it has. Just keep in mind that this is from the perspective of the olden times, back when America was just fresh out of the boat. It's pretty fresh at the time. This is the 18th century. In fact, the first edition was published in 1726. So don't expect this to don't expect. I didn't exactly expect that the traits and the morals that were written in here would still be alive and relevant to this day. But somehow it is still as relevant as it can be to this day in a different context. I'll go ahead and explain it to you later. So let's get this started with. Let's start off with criticisms. Now here we have critics. Now our critics here is that Gulliver himself is Jonathan Swift. Jonathan Swift himself has traveled through many lands as well as John Gulliver has done, at least within his mind, with his writings. But throughout those travels that Gulliver does, we go ahead and experience all the different lands that one would probably expect. As one could go ahead and say that our full book, that inside the whole book, we're just going to treatise about how great humanity is until when you flip the page and then when you arrive at part 4, we're finally talking about all the bad parts of humanity and how they're all terrible and such, that they should not deserve to exist and live on this spectrum of this life. Or at least on the face of the human earth, except the earth is a human earth, so obviously humans will have to exist there. What we can do, though, is try to fix our flaws as much as we can. We insist ourselves that we are civil people, but to others, species, we might seem like the most uncivil people at all. Other species might consider putting on clothes very uncivil, because why hide from nature what nature has given you? Others might go ahead and find it uncivil that we pee a little or do our excrementing stuff in private, whereas why hide stuff that nature gives you from nature itself? Nature gave you all that anyway. You should do it in the open. You should respect nature. But throughout all these criticisms, obviously, we have to go ahead and discuss something about it. With our climax and our rejection on the brink of happening, we have to go ahead and discuss about all the flaws that our humanity literally has to talk about. We, the humans themselves, are not perfect. Obviously, our societies are always in some way improvable. All of Europe itself could probably improve without having at least one war for about 200 years or such and such. We already had 100 years of no war in Europe once, and we could probably do it again if, well, some countries would permit us to. In western parts of Europe, so they have been at relative peace for the past, say, 50 years now. There's been no major war among them for about 50 years. Can't say the same thing about the United States of America. But one thing I will say about, though, Jonathan Swift is trying to tell us, is that throughout all these journeys where Gulliver himself is trying to go ahead and try to make Great Britain, our England itself, look like an imposing force that could probably destroy everything in our way, and is one of the most awesomest things that we could ever imagine and think of. We find out that he's literally just trying to diss Europe in a little way. Another book that this kind of reminds me of is mostly Animal Farm. Animal Farm itself was a treatise about communism, except it was written by someone living in Russia who had no intentions of being deported and or exiled, and as a result had to write the characters as animals rebelling against the humans. There's a little social critique on the communism as well too. Part 4 itself mainly reminds me of that, mainly because we have to reverse the roles from the Houyhnhnms, aka horses, and the humans, or the Yahoos in this case, I suppose, aka the humans. Yahoos are humans here. They swap their intelligences and their behaviors as well too. Horses are the civil ones, and Yahoos are the wild ones. And then when they find a Yahoo-like creature who's apparently calling himself a human, who acts nothing like a Yahoo and acts more like a Houyhnhnm, they're all obviously very, very spectacle and very marveled at this. As such and such, as Animal Farm is talking about the communist people and the Soviets, here, Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels, the English people themselves, well, the Honeynims themselves are representing the ideal human society in the sense that they cannot lie, they do not have any perception of what lying is, and that they themselves are just living with the acceptance that they have certain things. With the Yahoos being the true wild selves of the humans that we all try to conceal underneath that cloak of civility and cleanliness that we put on top of ourselves. It's working for like several thousand years, and since humanity has ever considered their own nakedness from Adam and Eve. But Jonathan Swift itself goes ahead and tries to tell us all this long before Animal Farm was even a thing, should I mention to you. And even though we're probably not going to build anything memorable from any of the Gulliver's Travels nowadays, we can still apply these themes to ourselves to this day. What am I talking about? Here, we have to talk about how this is relevant today. In the sense that we are still at war, we have not changed at all, one bit at all, from the last 100 years. Oh sure, we might have changed in the sense of that, hey, we're getting smarter, we should probably do more peace and things, but overall we still haven't changed. What if we did change completely? Why are there still wars going on inside our world? Why are there still people going ahead and trying to disagree with each other about where the border ends? It's like trying to say that we don't have gangs. We have two groups of boys, each of them disagree. We have two groups of boys, both disagreeing on where the neighborhood ends. Where one side of the neighborhood ends and one side of the neighborhood starts. And then realizing that you just described a gang. It reminds me of that scene, actually. We don't have any gangs here. We have two groups of boys, both disagreeing about where one side of the neighborhood ends and where one side of the neighborhood starts. And then a person who's being told to talk to is like, that's a gang! So essentially, that's about it. We are humans are not going to change our inner self. We are always going to be irrelevant towards the world. We are just going to be relevant to ourselves. We are going to be greedy for the rest of our times, and this will be the thing that ends us to destruction. But there are humans among us who try to destroy this greediness and things, who try to be rightful and righteousness, and be full of these morals of goodwill and things. And then it's with those humans that we have to go ahead and keep continuing on if we want to go ahead and aspire to the world that Gulliver himself imagines humans can be with the Honeynims, but eventually realizes that that cannot be possible and just decides to live with the Honeynims for the rest of his life, which utterly fails because he looks like a Yahoo, and Honeynims have flaws, saying that they have flaws and things that, well, they have moral guidelines and they believe he's a Yahoo, so they take great offense in having a Yahoo living with them. It's like racism, essentially, nowadays. But that's about it. That's it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Huntington. I hope to see you guys soon in the next episode. I'm pretty sure this was a little bit low quality for a Huntington episode, but I do hope you guys at least try to listen to my entire rant. Until then, Shihana, peace. Bye-bye.